Hello and welcome to another tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence. I'm Francis McCarthy, and welcome as well to another day of the solo pigment series. The star of today's show is Burn Umber. Burn Umber, step up, take a hand, take a bow, take a bow. You could take a hand as well. Either way, we love you, Burnt Umber. You are so wonderful. Now, I've got a few pretty interesting little things to read about Burnt Umber. But before we jump into that, let's see. We'll point out in a lot of the paintings in this series, I've been working on pine. For this particular painting, I chose to work on a bit of masonite, hardboard, yes. And that turned out to be a pretty good decision because things went well and turned out well. We already did raw umber, and frankly, today should be burnt sienna, not burnt umber. So I'm a little out of the order that I have things laid on my palette, but it's all good. It's all right. I've already made that mistake once or twice, so it's a loose order. But I've had burnt sienna on my palette forever, and we'll be talking about that later in the week. Like I said, that was supposed to be today's, but I already started uploading the big one that's going into the members area, which is this painting done live, and all of the fun that ensued. And I'm very proud of this painting, very happy with it. It turned out really nice. I had a lot of concerns. I don't often mix burnt umber with white because it's going to be kind of pink, but it all worked out. It looks good. It would look even better if I hit it with a little yellow glaze. It would just start glowing, and I may do it. We'll see. Or I may keep. We heard that already from you, Mike. My history with burnt umber is very interesting, and it ties in a little bit to some of these articles I'm going to read. I was working on burnt sienna, which is a very reddish color. Much more. This is a bit red, but burnt sienna, very red. Not as red as cad red. Speaking of the poor cad red, that video didn't do so great. Whatever though, it's all good. It was, an enjoyable painting to do, and has its own integrity. We're all good. When I haven't had burnt umber on my palette except for the last maybe 2 years or so. When I needed a color like that, I would just mix some raw umber with some burnt sienna, and there you are. Interestingly, umber and sienna, they're both iron oxides, and we'll be reading an article about that in a minute. It's very, to me, very fascinating. And as it turns out, I now have all of the earth pigments on my palette, so I'm a fan. Big fan. Anyway, my progression was that I started at some point moving from a painting on a background of burnt sienna to painting on a background of burnt umber. And this came about because I had wanted to paint on top of a painting that I did not like, and I got tired of seeing those paintings peeking through my new painting, so I thought I'll just cover it up. And I couldn't quite get it covered with the burnt sienna, so I just made a burnt umber type tone. And that painting was really good. It turned out really awesome, and it inspired several things. One was my whole entry into painting on nothing but textured panels for maybe 2 years, and then really painting on dark brown as well. And now, funny enough, I never really liked painting on white. I did a few paintings early on, but as soon as I could get into colored grounds, I was there. But let's read you a little bit. The two very interesting. I like this Pigments Through the Ages. We went to this site. It's webexhibits.org. Pigments Intro Browns HTML. Okay, if you want to tip on over there. But Intro to the Browns. Symbolism of the color brown. The word brown comes from Old English brun, used for any dusky or dark shade of color. Brown represents earthiness. While brown might be considered a little dull compared to other colors, brown also represents simplicity, health, and dependability. UPS, United Parcel Service, long ago adopted brown as its corporate color, and companies today often use brown paper to denote a natural product. Very good. And at the end of this article, very interesting little bit about the Japanese word for brown. you just stay tuned. Stay with me. Hey, I'm saving you the trouble of reading here. I'm reading to you, okay? Short history of brown pigments. Humanity has had pure brown pigments from the beginning of art. Umber is a natural earth color with many natural raw umber and raw sienna, and man-made burnt umber, burnt sienna variations, providing painters throughout history with many brown shades to satisfy their visual needs. In the 17th century, another natural earth color came into use, namely Van Dyke brown. I had a bit of a run-in with Van Dyke brown yesterday. Maybe I'll have time to tell you. We'll see. Although earthy browns were available for artist use in the 18th and 19th centuries, European artists commonly used a brown called momia, which was made from corpses. That's mummy brown. Weird. Egyptian mummies were exhumed and processed for commercial use as artist paint. That's just crazy. It's a dead person. Alright. Another odd source of the color brown was cuttlefish, whose secretions of dark ink were used to create sepia dye. These days, artificial dyes have replaced cuttlefish ink for sepia. Brown may cover a wide range of the visible spectrum because it refers to more hues, yellow, orange, or red. In a combination with low luminance or saturation, its shades are named using composite adjectives, such as red brown, yellowish brown, dark brown, and so forth. Browns can be made, you could have green brown as well. Browns can be made from primary colors, mixing blue with yellow to get green, and then mixing green with red. Browns can also be made simply by mixing orange or a red color with a bit of black paint. Very true, and when you're working with limited palettes, that's a lot of times what you'll do. Ah, yes, I like this bit of the article. The white to brown revolution. Top. Rembrandt. They have a Rembrandt, and he was painting on brown, actually a really super dark brown, almost black. Ground is a term describing the layer applied to the support as a preparation for painting. In early panel paintings, the ground consisted of inert white filler, which is chalk or gesso, the mineral gypsum, bound with animal skin glue. Yeah. In the early 16th century, artists began to color their grounds dark brown. Now we think that's so old. That was an innovation at the time, right? Dark brown, because doing so made it possible to execute a painting more rapidly and freely. Dark brown grounds were also exploited in the composition of painting. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's just stop in the article. The reason why it allows you to execute a painting much more freely than white is if you are painting on white, you've got to slow down and make sure all that white's covered up. When you're painting on brown, you can just let the brown peek through. Brown covers, as this article just stated, a really broad range of the spectrum, from yellow to orange to red to even into green. So bits of it peeking through almost any scene look fine. In fact, all that time I was painting on very dark brown, the only time I'd have to maybe make sure not too much was peeking through was the sky, and even there it was usually fine. Weird, huh? Anyway, back into the article. Either by leaving key parts exposed, as can be seen in this detail, they show a Rembrandt where you can see a bit of the ground color coming through. Rembrandt used carbon black as a main tinting pigment for the ground layer. I don't know much about carbon black, but carbon black, lamp black, yeah. In this cross section, so he's painting on black. Wow. Brown and orange are more closely related than you might have imagined. Now I can, this is auditory and you're watching me paint, but basically the example is showing the same color in shadow and in light, and it's orange. In light it appears to be brown, in shadow it appears to be orange. It's the exact same color. And we've got just maybe a few minutes left here. I'll talk about when I was working as a commercial artist. Part of my job was to make sure that colors were matched exactly for the products that were being manufactured from the artwork that I created. And I would have little swatches at the top of each of my composite sheets that were showing the artwork composited on products and whatnot. One time my boss, who, a pretty okay artist, but not as gifted with Photoshop or color knowledge as myself, if I don't say, well, clearly because I was paid to do that job. We had khaki. I don't know if you know that color khaki, but it's like the color of camouflage. it's really saddling a space in between green and brown. And when you're trying to match it, it can go too red or too green. It's very, very odd. And he was saying, well, can't you get it right? And I'm like, you do it, right? Because that perception of whether it was too green or too brown was entirely based on the colors that surrounded it. Just like this example in the article. Very, very interesting to me. Of course, I knew that, and I just told him nicely to get stuffed. Because I'm a nice guy like that. Anyway, brown, so fascinating. Let's keep going. Brown and orange are more closely related. Look at these two discs. Oh, here's this last little bit. See, he hung in there. The indefinable nature. It is indefinable. Could be the reason why the Japanese do not have a specific word for it, but refer to brown with names such as tea color and fallen leaf. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that cool? And real quick, we got a little bit from Gamblin. It's a little more technical. Natural iron oxides, ochres, siennas, and umbers. Found all over the earth in muted shades of red, orange, yellow, and green, natural iron oxides, more commonly called earth colors, have been on artists' palettes for more than 40,000 years. The cave paintings still visible today are a testament to the stability of these mineral colorants. These muted yellow, orange, red, and brown hues dominated the work of the old masters because earth colors were not only light-fast, but were commonly available. The range of colored earth is derived from the nature of iron oxide present in the material. Limonite ranges from yellow to brown and contains water in its chemical composition. Artists know these as ochre, sienna, and umber. Ochre is clay-colored with hydrated iron oxide. So ochre is clay colored with hydrated iron oxide. It's much more clayish. Doesn't dry as fast either. It can sit on the palette for quite a while. While limonite is heated through calcination, the water content is eliminated, resulting in the red hermite known as burnt sienna. So when you heat it, you get that real red. So you can see there's a bit of red in what we're doing here. But if you look at the raw umber, it really is nowhere near as red. So when that's heated up, you're basically getting some of the very first synthetic pigments. Umber, from its Latin origins, meaning shade, is found in sites where naturally occurring manganese dioxide combines with iron. Umbers and other pigments containing manganese make quick-drying oil colors. Yeah, much more quick-drying than the siennas. So they're related, and they go together. They love to go together. It's so beautiful. I'm looking at this photo they have of the actual pigments just spilled, the powdered pigments spilled on a on a stone. It's so beautiful. It's inspiring. Really. I wish I could actually include images with my videos. Anyway, we're getting kind of close to the end, but I really enjoyed doing this painting. It really came together better than I thought. I got a really nice range of values. I did use black. The colors used in this painting, so sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. Mars black, burnt umber, and white. And the white is titanium white. The Mars black is a matte color, and I've been playing a lot with Mars black lately. Mars black is pretty cool. Something, by the way, I think we got like part of a minute here. The Gamblin article goes on to talk about the synthetic earth colors, which is iron oxide. It's been modified chemically, and why bother, it said, because there were so many awesome earth pigments. But it supposes that the reason why the synthetic iron oxides were created was to have colors that were that didn't shift so much, that were entirely repeatable and consistent. So I don't know if you've ever got one tube of raw umber and saw it was very, very different from your other tube of raw umber. But that's a good example of what I'm talking about. There's going to be a lot depending on where they dug the stuff up. They dug it up, they ground it up, they put some oil in it, and then you paint with it. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I think this painting is quite beautiful, and I hope that it does better than poor, lonely cadmium red, But You know, it is what it is. Anyway, until I come back with another video for your edification and enjoyment. Oh, please tip on over to my website. Go buy a painting. It's Christmas. Come on. Anyway, until I come back with another video, please do me a favor. Take good care. Stay out of trouble.